Attention gun owners. A unanimous Supreme Court ruling changed what police can do at your front door. Most people still don't know how much protection that gives your home. Last month, 72-year-old Patricia from Charlotte left for a wellness check. When she returned, $7,260 in firearms and gear were suddenly gone. She sat in her driveway shaking, wondering how cooperation became punishment. Let me be honest with you. People who stay informed usually protect their rights before trouble starts. People who don't often learn the rules after the damage is done. Which group do you want to be in today? Subscribe right now, because the next update could matter even more. Let me tell you more about Patricia. She's 72 years old and lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. She drove a school bus for 30 years and lives alone now. Her late husband taught her safe storage and careful handling. Inside her locked closet sat 2 firearms, ammo, and gear worth $7,260. One rainy Tuesday, Patricia broke down during a call with her daughter. Her daughter heard panic in her voice and called local police. 2 officers arrived and said they wanted to help, not punish. They suggested a voluntary mental health visit to calm everyone down. Patricia agreed because she thought cooperation would keep the situation peaceful. She left believing everything in her house would stay exactly where it was. Hours later, Patricia came home tired, embarrassed, and ready for sleep. Instead, she found her closet empty and her cases missing. The officers had entered while she was away and removed everything. No judge had signed anything and no charge had been filed. An officer later called it temporary safekeeping for everyone involved. Patricia felt fooled, and that kind of treatment should disturb you. A civil rights lawyer reviewed the reports and pushed back fast. 18 days later, Patricia got nearly all her property returned. One optic was scratched, but the larger loss had been stopped. Now she keeps an attorney's number taped inside her pantry door. She told her church friends never to assume kindness means legal authority. That hard lesson cost her weeks of fear and sleepless nights. Now let me tell you about Thomas. He's 74 years old and lives in Denver, Colorado. Thomas is a retired mechanic raising his teenage grandson full-time. He owns several hunting rifles and family pieces worth $11,180. Those firearms mean security to him, but they also hold memories. One Saturday evening, Thomas argued with his grandson about school trouble. The voices got loud enough that a neighbor called 911. When officers arrived, Thomas stepped outside wearing socks and house slippers. Another officer asked to go inside and make sure everyone was okay. Thomas was rattled and wanted the scene over as fast as possible. He nodded without really thinking through what that answer allowed. Inside the home, an officer spotted Thomas's locked gun cabinet. Minutes later, the tone shifted from concern to control. He was told the firearms would be removed for the night. Then one night turned into 2 weeks, and then 3. No one arrested Thomas, and no court had approved the seizure. That kind of mission creep is exactly what makes people lose trust. Thomas finally called a lawyer after getting nowhere by himself. The lawyer challenged the warrantless entry and the property removal. Most of the collection came back, though one old stock was cracked. Thomas still gets angry when he talks about that evening. He says the worst part wasn't the noise or the argument. It was learning how easy it was to say yes under pressure. Quick pause for a second. What state are you watching from right now? Drop your state in the comments before this video moves on. Rules can differ across states, and your comment helps others find this. Type your state below, because I really want to know. Let me tell you about Nancy next. She's 69 years old and lives in Jacksonville, Florida. Nancy retired from nursing and still checks on 3 older neighbors. After her husband passed, she bought a small pistol for protection. With another shotgun and safe gear, she owned about $6,140 in property. After a rough month, Nancy's sister became deeply worried about her. She called police and asked for a wellness check that evening. 2 officers arrived and said the family feared Nancy might spiral. They spoke softly and suggested taking her firearms for a while. Nancy felt ashamed, cornered, and desperate to prove she was stable. That's how many people get pushed into choices they never wanted. But Nancy had already started learning her rights and local process. She stayed on the porch and kept the screen door closed. She said she was safe but did not consent to entry. She also said she would comply with any proper court order. The officers pressed again, then contacted a crisis counselor by phone. Because no immediate danger existed, they eventually left without taking anything. The next morning, Nancy called her therapist and a local attorney. She created a written safety plan and shared it with family. She also stored emergency contacts beside her medication and house keys. Nothing was seized, and the situation cooled down quickly. Nancy didn't win by yelling, threatening, or pretending to know everything. She won by staying calm, clear, and legally precise. Then there's George. He's 75 years old and lives in Portland, Oregon. George is a veteran who helps care for his wife each day. He keeps a revolver, a rifle, and supplies worth about $9,830. His routine is quiet, careful, and built around safety. During a nasty storm, the power went out after midnight. George walked room to room with a flashlight checking doors and windows. A neighbor saw his silhouette and called police in alarm. The report said an older man looked confused and armed. Within minutes, patrol cars rolled onto George's dark street. His wife started crying because flashing lights always trigger old memories. The officers knocked and asked to secure the weapons until morning. George almost agreed because he hates conflict and respects police work. But he also realized nobody inside was threatened or injured. He asked whether they had a warrant or court order. They said no and repeated that they were only being cautious. That careful language can sound harmless while carrying serious consequences. George stayed polite and spoke through the locked screen door. He said everyone inside was safe and no entry was allowed. After a few more questions, the officers finally left the property. The next day, George learned how close he came to months of stress. He told his neighbors he almost gave away his rights through politeness. That story should matter to every owner watching right now. Real quick before we keep going, if this is helping you, hit the like button now. A strong like rate pushes this information to more owners and families. That means more people hear this before a bad knock comes. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps more than you think. Here's what frustrates me about all of this. A narrow rule meant for public vehicles got stretched into private homes. That shortcut kept growing because it sounded caring and practical. Officials use soft words while bypassing the hardest legal safeguard. And when citizens are scared, soft words can open dangerous doors. The Supreme Court finally pushed back on that shortcut in a major way. All 9 justices agreed the home cannot be treated like a car. That matters because your living room is not a traffic stop. General caretaking concerns do not erase the need for legal process. That line is now far clearer than many agencies wanted. But don't misunderstand the ruling and make a bad mistake. If someone faces immediate danger, police can still act fast. An active threat, a hostage crisis, or shots fired changes everything. Real emergencies still allow officers to move without waiting around. The ruling blocks vague excuses, not urgent responses to present danger. This also means your rights change depending on where you stand. Your house gets the strongest privacy protection under the Constitution. Your vehicle gets less protection, and public spaces get even less. So don't assume porch rules match car stop rules or sidewalk rules. Those are different legal worlds with different standards and risks. And here's another point many people miss completely. A state can still use a court process to remove firearms. Some states use emergency petitions, hearings, and temporary orders. Whether you like those laws or hate them, judges matter there. What this ruling rejects is skipping the court and improvising anyway. One worried call alone should not replace lawful process inside your home. Think of one person who needs this today. Maybe it's your brother, your mother, your neighbor, or your friend. Someone you care about could lose property through confusion or pressure. Share this video with them right now, not later tonight. Send the link before you forget, because waiting helps nobody. If your firearms were taken years ago, don't expect an automatic fix. A strong ruling helps, but it doesn't file papers for you. Time limits, local rules, and court procedures still matter a lot. That means records, reports, and legal advice become incredibly important. The sooner someone checks those details, the better their options usually are. This makes me angry for one simple reason. Rights rarely vanish with one loud announcement and flashing warning lights. They usually fade through polite requests and temporary sounding exceptions. Just let us in for a minute becomes just let us take these. Then people spend months fighting to recover what they never surrendered knowingly. So what should you say when officers appear at your door? Keep it short, respectful, and steady, even if your heart races. You can say, "Officer, I respect your job and I'm okay. I do not consent to entry or property removal without legal authority. If you believe an emergency exists, please follow the proper process." That kind of sentence is calm, lawful, and easy to remember. You don't need to scream constitutional slogans on your porch. You don't need to argue case names in the dark either. And you absolutely should not physically block officers or escalate things. Stay outside if possible, keep your hands visible, and stay polite. If recording is legal in your state, document the encounter carefully. The goal is protection, not pride, and those are different things. Here's exactly what you need to do. I'm giving you 6 steps, and each one is simple. You don't need to finish all 6 before dinner tonight, but you should start with step 1 before this weekend's. Write these down somewhere visible, because panic erases memory fast. Ready to begin and make this practical for your household? Step 1. Make a home response plan with everyone who lives there. Decide who speaks, who stays quiet, and who gathers important numbers. Pick one calm sentence each person can remember under stress. Practice it like a fire drill until it feels natural. A simple plan can stop fear from making choices for you. Step 2. Create a full property record for every firearm and major accessory. Photograph each item, note serial numbers, and save receipts if possible. Store one copy in your home and another outside it. If something is taken, this list becomes your proof and leverage. Without records, bad situations usually get slower and more expensive. Step 3. Build your contact list before any crisis starts at all. Include an attorney, a trusted relative, a therapist, and local support numbers. Put those names in your phone and on paper. When people panic, they often call the wrong person first. The right call in the first hour can change everything later. Step 4. Learn your own state's process for emergency orders and firearm removal. Search your court website and read the plain language summaries. Find out who can file, how hearings work, and how fast. If a process exists, you should know its shape beforehand. Knowledge strips away fear because unknown rules create the deepest panic. Step 5. Practice your door statement out loud until it feels boring. Say, "I don't consent to entry or seizure without proper authority." Then stop talking unless you need basic safety communication. Too many words create confusion, contradictions, and unwanted permission. Short, respectful answers protect you better than nervous rambling ever will. Step 6. If property is taken, start documenting everything that same day. Request the incident number, the inventory sheet, and officer names. Write down the time, witnesses, and exact words you remember. Then contact qualified legal help before posting angry details online. Fast documentation often saves months of confusion and missing information. Most families will never face a situation exactly like these stories, but many will face pressure, confusion, or a knock they didn't expect. The difference between panic and control is usually preparation, not luck. Prepared people still get scared, but they don't get blindsided as easily. That's the kind of confidence I want you to build now. Let's review what we covered today. A major Supreme Court ruling drew a stronger line at your front door. It said vague caretaking claims do not justify home entry by default. You also learned that real emergencies still change the legal picture. Most important, you now know how pressure often hides behind polite language. That knowledge alone could save you thousands and months of stress. And here's the final punch I want to leave with you. The next serious test probably won't arrive with dramatic music playing. It may come on an ordinary Tuesday, during rain, stress, or family conflict. That's why Patricia's driveway, Thomas's porch, and George's stormy night matter. Ordinary moments are where rights get tested and sometimes quietly lost. Don't wait for chaos before deciding how you'll respond. If this helped you, here's what to do next. Subscribe so you don't miss the next urgent update. Share this with someone who keeps firearms or lives alone. Comment your state or your situation down below right now. I read those comments and they help others find this information. Your support turns one video into protection for many more families. Important disclaimer: this video is educational only and not legal advice. It is not financial, medical, tax, or mental health advice either. Every situation is different, and laws vary from state to state. Speak with licensed attorneys, advisors, doctors, or other professionals before acting. What helped one person may not fit your situation at all.